Hello YouTube. Today I'll be going over my favorite deck, Legacy Punishing Nic Fit. So if you're not familiar with Nic Fit, it is a black-green control deck, although mine is black-green-red. And the general idea of the deck is to accelerate out a lot of basic lands and then just keep your opponent at bay using removal and then beat their face in with very large creatures. And it is a lot of fun to play. And mine also uses some elements from Punishing Jund, which you will see later in the video. So let's start it out with the lands. I run 2 basic forests. I run 3 basic swamps. And I run 1 basic mountain. We will also get to later of why I use so many basics. There'll be a lot of backtracking in this video, as there are a lot of different synergies within the deck. I run 1 Bayou, black and green. I run 1 Badlands, red and black. And I run 1 Taiga, green and red. I'll get it to focus here in a second. Trying. Oh, there we go. I run 4 Verdant Catacombs. This is the fetch land that can grab me a forest or a swamp. And remember, the dual lands are forests and swamps in addition to the other types. 3 Wooded Foothills. This can get me mountains or forests. 1 Phyrexian Tower. It helps me accelerate mana, and also the sacrificing can be beneficial, as you will see later. 1 Kessig Wolf Run. I can dump tons of mana into this thing, and it'll just win me games, even if I only have a small little dinky 1/1 out. And then last, but definitely not least, 4 Grove of the Burnwillows. So this land taps for colorless, or I can use it for a red or a green and have my opponent gain 1 life, which is crucial for the deck, and we will see how it is used later. Alright, next I run 4 Green Sun Zenith, and this is because every creature in the deck is green and is able to be fetched with Green Sun Zenith, so just keep that in mind as we go through the deck, that I run basically an additional 4 copies of every creature in the deck. I run 4 Veteran Explorer. So this is a card some might consider to really be the backbone of the deck. So, I'll get it. There we go. When Veteran Explorer dies, each player may get 2 basics from their graveyard onto the battlefield untapped. So a lot of Legacy decks don't even run that many basics, which just makes this a one-sided benefit only for me. And even if they do, I don't really care, because I have a lot of removal and hand disruption to help, maintain the board. So, this card is really good, and there's a lot of ways for me to kill it myself if my opponents won't do it for me. One of them being the Phyrexian Tower we saw earlier, and we'll get to more as we continue through the video. 1 Deathrite Shaman. I can convert my fetch lands in my graveyards to mana, and then exile stuff out of either player's graveyard, so theirs if they need it, mine if I don't care, to gain life and make them lose life. Scavenging Ooze. It also just exiles things out of the graveyard. Once it focuses, you will be able to see that. There we go. Exile target card from graveyard. If it was a creature, I gain a life and put a counter on the Ooze. Good stuff. Next is a card from M15, Reclamation Sage. So this, when it enters the battlefield, lets me destroy any target artifact or enchantment, which is the nuts. I want something dead, boom, Green Sun Zenith for 4, it's gone. Eternal Witness. This card is also very good. When it enters the battlefield, return any card from my graveyard to my hand. So anything in the deck that looks like it only has 1 use, it actually has 2. Huntmaster of the Fells, which is this guy. He's just a great threat. Most decks don't know how to deal with me putting out 2 creatures at once. And once we can get him to focus, sorry this is such a problem, if they do not deal with him, he will flip. And when he flips, he becomes a 4/4 with trample, which in Legacy is rather large, and generally he can just kill one of their creatures right off of that. It's like, he's especially known for killing flipped Delvers. That is just a lot of fun to do. Next, one Thrun the Last Troll. I love this card. This card is an absolute nightmare for control decks to deal with. He can't be countered, he has hexproof, he regenerates. The only way they can kill him is Wrath of God. And you know how many decks play Wrath of God? Not many. Okay, they can Terminus him too. Fine. But he's amazing. This guy just wins games all by himself. Next is Thragtusk. The amount of value this guy gives is absurd. Against any sort of aggro deck, gaining 5 life is huge, and then I get a double blocker out of it to trade for their stuff. There's no coming back from that. And just 5 attack, it's a 4-turn clock alone. This guy can really seal the deal. And then our last creature is Primeval Titan. So this guy, once I accelerate my lands with Veteran Explorer, gets me even more. And he gets me my specialized ones like Kessig Wolf Run and Grove of the Burnwillows. And with Kessig Wolf Run and this guy, I'm just getting so much mana I can turn my smallest creatures into huge beaters to win the game for me. Alright, now to our non-creature spells. I play 2 Thoughtseize. So, Thoughtseize, just arguably the best hand disruption spell in the game. They reveal their hand. I choose a non-land card from it, and they discard it for only 2 life. So I just rip something out of their hand. And it's also good for letting me see their hand, so then I can make better choices with Cabal Therapy. So, Cabal Therapy is something I play 4 copies of. Name a non-land card, they reveal their hand. If they discard all cards with that name, so even if they have more than one. So Thoughtseize can really set them for disaster after I know what's up in their hand. And the flashback for it is sacrifice a creature, which is great! I'm going to play Veteran Explorer and then sacrifice it right to my Cabal Therapy to make them discard a card, and after I name it the first time, even if I miss, I'll be able to definitely hit something the second time because I know what they have. And I got my 2 lands to then play something else. And do note when playing Cabal Therapy that you do not have to announce what card that you're choosing until after they let it resolve. So they have to choose whether to counter it before they even know what card you're going to choose. Next, I run 3 copies of Sensei's Divining Top, a must for control deck, which remember, even though this isn't blue, it is still a control deck. And this just lets me have library manipulation. And with my fetch lands, I can shuffle away the different cards of my deck. With my Veteran Explorer, I can shuffle away the different cards of my deck and make sure I'm hitting the removal spells or win conditions that I need. Next is Punishing Fire. This is the whole reason Grove of the Burnwillows is in the deck. And so Punishing Fire deals 2 damage to target creature or player, and whenever opponent gains life, I may play a mount red mana to return it from my graveyard to my hand. So do remember that Grove of the Burnwillows taps our red mana to make them gain 1 life. So when they gain a life, I use that same red mana to get this back. So I can Punishing Fire the same thing multiple times per turn if I have multiple red mana and deal more than 2 damage to creatures, or just boom, kill a creature, get it back, boom, kill a creature, get it back, boom, kill a creature, get it back. Or I can pay 3 mana, the 2 mana to cast it and the 1 to get it back to do a net 1 damage to their life total every turn. Abrupt Decay. This is just absurdly good removal. Kills all small things, which are very prevalent in Legacy, and it can't be countered. I love it. Maelstrom Pulse. Same idea as Abrupt Decay, except for 1 mana more. It can hit big things, and it destroys all of them. I love this. Pernicious Deed. Alright, Pernicious Deed is the board wipe of the deck. So I play it, and then I sacrifice it to destroy all the artifact creature enchantments that I want. And the thing is, I get so much mana with this deck that I can generally set X for whatever I want it to be, for a reasonable amount. I'm not going to be killing like Emrakul's and so on. But also remember that a lot of my creatures like Thragtusk and Thrun and Huntmaster the Fells and Primeval Titan have a higher converted mana cost than most other creatures in Legacy. So Pernicious Deed is going to be able to keep my creatures alive while destroying theirs in most situations. And then last 3 cards in the deck are 3 Liliana of the Veil. So +1, each player discards a card, which it'll focus here in a second. Which, since I'm a control deck, I really want to run the other deck out of resources. So having them discard a card is great. -2, they sack a creature, so she's a removal spell too, and she can get rid of things like True Name Nemesis. So that's really helpful. And then if you ultimate her, you're winning the game. There's no question about it. So that is the main board. Now we'll go to the sideboard. So first thing, I run 1 copy of Obstinate Baloth. So Obstinate Baloth is kind of an odd choice, most people would think. But in addition to stopping aggro decks the same idea as Thragtusk does, it also punishes my opponents for playing things such as Hymn to Torak or any other non-targeted discard, also opposing Liliana's. And I just get a free 4/4 out of it and 4 life. It's a lot of fun. I run 2 copies of Slaughter Games. So Slaughter Games lets me choose a card and exile all of them out of the opponent's hand and deck. And it cannot be countered. So any decks that only have 1 or 2 win conditions, Slaughter Games just destroys them when I accelerate it out after Veteran Explorer, and then I just take whatever their win condition is, and then they cannot win anymore. Next, we have 1 copy of Garruk Relentless. So Garruk Relentless is kind of in there for the long game when especially fighting against board wipes, because he can kill a little creature and then flip, which we'll see in a second, or he can just spill out a 2/2 wolf every turn, which is fine with me. So on the flip side, you see his wolves are now 1/1s with Death Touch instead of 2/2s, which are much better against creature-based decks, although they'll be dealing damage a little slower. Lets me sack a creature to tutor for a creature card, which is great since my deck is kind of like a toolbox deck running all sorts of different kinds of creatures. And then his last one is an overrun effect to just help me win the game. Next, we have another copy of Reclamation Sage for anything that runs a lot of artifacts or enchantments, like Esper Deathblade, or maybe they boarded in a Leyline of Sanctity to protect from my discard spells. Next is 1 Golgari Charm. This is generally used for the -1/-1 to kill True Name Nemesis, as an alternate way besides like Liliana or Pernicious Deed. But the other 2 abilities are also very relevant. For regenerating each creature I control, that just helps a lot. It adds Thrun's effect to everything. Or destroying target enchantment comes into play every now and then. Next, I run 1 more Thoughtseize on the board. This just helps if a deck, especially combo, or a deck that really requires them to assemble something, some sort of synergy between cards, and then I can just rip one of those cards out of their opening hand and make my Cabal Therapies more consistent. The 4th Liliana of the Veil. I generally side this in against a lot of creature-based decks for the same reasons the other one, to run them out of cards and make them sack creatures. Also do note, since it's a Planeswalker, it's not hit by Pernicious Deed, so I can wipe the board and still have it out there. 1 more copy of Deathrite Shaman. Just board it against any deck that cares about the graveyard. I get the benefit from them putting stuff on their graveyard, and they lose the benefit of them using their own graveyard. Then I run 2 copies of Surgical Extraction. So, Surgical Extraction, just rip something out of a graveyard, and then I'll take it all out of their deck as well. I'll get it to focus here in a second. And the reason I use Surgical Extraction over Extirpate is because it's free. This can be very relevant in something like against Dredge or against Ant, where I need to make them exile something very early. And then the last cards of the sideboard are 2 copies of Red Elemental Blast, and Pyroblast, and these are effectively the same card. I guess Red Elemental Blast is a little bit better, because if they use Misdirection, it does have to target a blue source, as opposed to Pyroblast, which can target anything and then just not do anything. But that is so irrelevant most of the time that it doesn't even matter. The only reason why I run 2 of each instead of 4 of one of them is so opposing Cabal Therapies or anything that'll exile them from my deck when they name it, or Meddling Mage even cannot hit all 4 copies. It only can hit 2 of the copies at a time. But destroying a blue permanent and countering blue spells for 1 mana is just so much value, there's no way I couldn't run that card. So this deck is a lot of fun to play, and it is my favorite deck. Just playing big things in Legacy is awesome. So if you have any comments or feedback, please leave it down below, and I will be happy to take a look at it. And if you want to build this deck and try it out online, it is great. So I will see you next time.